Imagine a machine built not just to move people, but to outlast time itself. Picture highways of the late 70s, dust rising off the shoulders, engines humming in the background, families and travelers trusting their ride without a second thought. Here was a shape so ordinary it became invisible, yet inside it carried a secret, an endurance so remarkable it would go on to become legend. The world was shifting. Oil crises, economic uncertainty, drivers demanding both thrift and strength. And this was the moment when an unlikely hero emerged. Its story isn't about flashy speed or revolutionary styling. It's about dependability so profound that mechanics joked they might never see one break. And decades later, the proof still runs on back roads, city streets, and in the hands of collectors who value durability above all else. Today we'll unravel how that reputation was built, why it spread worldwide, and what it still means for anyone behind the wheel. Stick around, hit like and subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which machine you'd like to see covered next. The Mercedes-Benz W123 made its debut in 1976, stepping into a world that demanded reliability more than flash. And within its first months, it became clear that this sedan was built for something greater than passing trends. It looked conservative, even cautious, but beneath that boxy form lay an engineering philosophy that prioritized strength, safety, and practicality in equal measure. This wasn't a car designed to impress at first glance. It was designed to keep running after decades of service, a quality that would transform it into one of the most beloved vehicles across continents. Micro-story. In Germany, taxi fleets quickly recognized the Mercedes-Benz W123 as a natural fit for long-haul service. Painted in their trademark beige, these cars became fixtures in city squares and airports, clocking hundreds of thousands of miles without complaint. Passengers came to associate the ride with quiet sturdiness, while drivers knew their livelihood depended on a machine that simply refused to quit. Each meter ticked on the odometer added to the legend, and soon the taxi trade's confidence echoed into private ownership. Micro-story. Across Africa, the W123 carved its reputation on roads that punished lesser vehicles. Whether carrying families, hauling supplies, or serving as informal buses packed far beyond capacity, the sedan handled conditions that would overwhelm many modern cars. Owners quickly learned that with basic care and a ready supply of parts, the W123 seemed almost indestructible. The car became more than transport. It was a lifeline that could survive heat, dust, and endless rough terrain. Context digest. In the mid-1970s, global oil shocks reshaped how people thought about driving. Big engines became less appealing, and efficiency paired with reliability was the new demand. The W123's range of engines, from frugal diesels to smooth gasoline units, meant buyers could choose what fit their needs while trusting in long-term durability. It was a smart response to an uncertain decade, and it paid off in global sales. Micro-story. In the United States, import buyers looked to the W123 as a sophisticated alternative to domestic sedans. It wasn't about power. It was about prestige and peace of mind. College professors, doctors, and business owners chose the car not just for its badge, but for the reassurance that it would start every morning, year after year. On suburban streets, it became a quiet marker of success without extravagance, and soon its diesel models gained cult status as the go-to option for high-mileage drivers. Reflection bridge. The Mercedes-Benz W123 was more than just a car. It was a response to a world asking for reassurance and strength. And as it spread across continents, its legend only deepened. Context digest. Safety was another pillar of the W123's appeal. At a time when crash protection was rarely prioritized, the engineers reinforced passenger compartments, introduced crumple zones, and emphasized survivability in ways that were ahead of the curve. Families trusted it because they knew it could take a hit and protect them in ways many rivals could not. This commitment to safety only enhanced its reputation for responsibility and care. Micro-story. In the Middle East, where long desert highways tested endurance, the W123 proved equally suited. Air conditioning systems held up under relentless heat, and the engine seemed to shrug off the miles of open-road cruising. These cars often became part of extended families, passed from one generation to the next, each owner layering new stories on top of old ones. The sedan didn't just survive, it thrived, adapting to cultures and climates as if built specifically for them. Context digest. Production numbers tell part of the story. Nearly 2.7 million W123 units were sold between 1976 and 1985. covering sedans, coupes, and wagons. This breadth of choice meant the model appealed across demographics, from young professionals to large families, from city commuters to rural drivers. It wasn't one niche audience. It was everyone, and that universal reach cemented its place in automotive history. Reflection bridge. By the early 1980s, the Mercedes-Benz W123 had become not only a car, but a symbol of trust and longevity. Its presence was global, its reputation unshakable. And yet, as strong as it was, the story of how it escalated into cultural icon status was only beginning. From this foundation of durability and universal trust, the next phase of its journey shows how the W123 moved from respected sedan to near mythical status in the eyes of enthusiasts and everyday drivers alike, a transformation that would echo for generations. The Mercedes-Benz W123 entered the 1980s with momentum, its reputation now firmly established as the sedan that would not die. And within 30 words of any introduction, it became clear that this was no ordinary car. Owners marveled at how quickly it transcended simple transportation and became part of family identity, something passed down like a piece of heirloom furniture. In Europe, the sight of the beige taxi versions alone turned it into an icon of reliability, while private owners began to realize they were sitting on a machine that could outlast their own driving careers. Micro-story. A university student in the late 1980s bought a tired W123 from a neighbor, thinking it would serve as a cheap commuter. 2 decades later, the same car still carried him to work, now with over 500,000 miles on its odometer. It had lived through rain, snow, and the usual knocks of city life, yet the engine never faltered. The doors still closed with a satisfying thunk, and the seats, though worn, remained supportive. Stories like his became folklore, reinforcing the idea that this was no temporary purchase but a lifelong investment. Context digest. Reliability wasn't simply a byproduct, it was a design ethos. The engineers at the time chose conservative technologies, robust materials, and systems that could be maintained without exotic tools. This approach stood in stark contrast to rivals experimenting with electronics that often failed prematurely. The W123 wasn't flashy, but it delivered a promise. If you kept it, it would keep you moving. That level of trustworthiness resonated in every market. Micro-story. In rural America, families who had never owned a foreign car decided to try the W123, drawn by its diesel economy during uncertain fuel times. What began as skepticism turned into admiration as the car proved it could handle dirt roads, long winter nights, and summer road trips with equal ease. Kids grew up in the back seats, and decades later, many remembered that their parents' sedan seemed eternal compared to others constantly cycling through repairs. Reflection bridge. The Mercedes-Benz W123 was more than transport. It was a cultural anchor, a machine that defined stability during shifting times. And with stability came new layers of meaning. Context digest. The W123 also expanded body styles with its station wagon variant, appealing to families who wanted both durability and practicality. For many, this became the first true luxury wagon available in their region, redefining what a family car could be. Coupled with the coupe version, the model reached customers who wanted individuality without sacrificing the bulletproof reputation of the sedan. This versatility kept the car relevant, no matter the lifestyle. Micro-story. In parts of Africa, a single W123 wagon became the backbone of a village's informal transport service. Loaded beyond what any engineer could have envisioned, the vehicle carried people, livestock, and goods for years on end. Even when rust ate at its panels, the heart of the machine refused to quit. Villagers began referring to it as the Immortal, a nickname that highlighted just how much trust and reliance was placed on this unassuming vehicle. Micro-story. Collectors in later decades began to notice the rising scarcity of untouched W123s. While many still roamed daily streets, finding one in pristine original condition became a challenge. Auctions began spotlighting them, enthusiasts traded stories, and slowly the once ordinary sedan started to carry an aura of reverence. This wasn't nostalgia for styling. It was respect for an era when cars were built to last longer than expectations. Context digest. By its production end in 1985, the W123 had achieved something remarkable. It became the highest-selling Mercedes-Benz model to that date. That figure wasn't just a commercial victory, it symbolized how universally trusted the car had become. Whether as a workhorse in fleets or a treasured family car, its reach was unmatched, and its departure marked the end of an era defined by solidity over speed. Reflection bridge. As the 1990s rolled in, the Mercedes-Benz W123 was no longer just a common sight, but an enduring landmark of motoring history, holding its ground against trends that came and went. This bridge leads us into the final chapter of its legacy, where the W123 not only endured in memory, but actively influenced how future generations understood longevity, ownership, and the value of building something to last. The Mercedes-Benz W123 stepped out of its production years, with a legacy already sealed. And within the first 30 words of any serious discussion, it remained impossible not to call it a benchmark of endurance. While newer designs took center stage, the W123 continued to roll across highways, towns, and rural backroads, its boxy silhouette now symbolizing something more than mere transportation. Owners realized they held in their hands not just a car, but a durable companion that aged gracefully and carried their stories with it. Micro-story. A family in the American Midwest bought their W123 wagon in the early 80s, planning to use it for school runs and camping trips. 30 years later, the same vehicle still stood in their driveway, now passed on to a grown child. Every scrape, dent, and upholstery tear told a chapter of family life, and despite decades of use, it fired up with the same quiet determination. The car had become a rolling family album, more valuable for its memories than its market price. Context digest. The broader automotive world shifted toward electronic complexity in the late 20th century, but the W123 remained rooted in mechanical simplicity. That made it easier to repair and sustain, especially in regions where advanced diagnostic tools were scarce. Its mechanical honesty turned it into an enduring educational tool for mechanics learning their trade, ensuring its influence stretched far beyond owners into the very culture of repair and maintenance. Micro-story. In a coastal African city, a W123 taxi logged over 1 million kilometers before finally being retired. By then, it had served thousands of passengers, weathered countless road conditions, and proven beyond doubt that durability wasn't just a selling point but a lived reality. When the taxi was finally parked, the community treated it with reverence, almost like a monument to hard work and dependability. Reflection bridge. The Mercedes-Benz W123 was no longer simply admired. It had become mythologized, a touchstone for conversations about what cars could and should be. Context digest. Even as collectors began restoring W123s to pristine condition, everyday drivers still relied on them as affordable classics. The balance between usability and heritage was rare. It was a car that could appear at a show field one day and commute reliably the next. That dual life set it apart from many contemporaries that had faded into obscurity or impracticality. Micro-story. In Europe, a retired engineer who had driven his W123 daily since new decided to document every service, repair, and mile. His detailed logs eventually became an archive studied by enthusiasts, showing in black and white how one machine could embody both personal dedication and corporate craftsmanship. His story was not unique. Across the world, similar tales emerged of people who chose to live alongside their W123 for life. Micro-story. Online communities in the 21st century began celebrating survivor cars, and the W123 rose quickly to the top of conversations. Owners shared photos of odometers rolling past 500,000 miles, stories of road trips without breakdowns, and advice on keeping parts circulating. What once was ordinary had become extraordinary, a unifying symbol for people who believed durability was as exciting as horsepower. Context digest. Perhaps most telling was how governments and institutions used the W123 well into the 2000s, keeping them in fleets for diplomatic and administrative duties. Few cars enjoyed such extended professional use, but the W123's reputation made it a safe, economical, and respectable choice long after production ended. It wasn't nostalgia driving these decisions. It was cold, rational trust in proven reliability. Reflection bridge. The Mercedes-Benz W123, by refusing to fade, reshaped the way we look at automotive legacies. Not through momentary performance, but through endurance and cultural resonance. And now, its impact brings us into the broader reflection of what this indestructible sedan left behind for future generations and why its relevance continues to echo in today's conversations about value, ownership, and trust. The Mercedes-Benz W123 stands today not just as a historical sedan, but as a blueprint for what dependable engineering can achieve. And within the first 30 words of this conclusion, it deserves mention as the car that defined durability across continents. For American viewers, ownership reality has always been straightforward. Buy one, maintain it with care, and expect decades of service that outlasts ordinary expectations. Even now, diesel examples are spotted running on biodiesel or adapted to modern fuels, showing that the platform was flexible long before sustainability became a buzzword. The cultural impact in the United States was subtle but profound. This wasn't a car for drag strips or flashy night drives. It was a car that quietly reassured its owners that money had been well spent. Professors trusted it to carry them to campus, small business owners used it to build their livelihoods, and families placed their children in its back seats without hesitation. In that calm reliability lay its power. The global story only strengthens that perception. In Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, W123s still work daily as taxis, private cars, and community shuttles. In Europe, they remain the symbol of taxi culture, their boxy forms instantly recognizable even to people born decades after production ceased. Collectors in the US and abroad now seek clean examples, and while prices rise, the core reason remains the same. A W123 is more than collectible metal, it's a statement of trust. Ownership reality also involves maintenance. Parts supply remains surprisingly healthy thanks to its sheer production volume and enthusiast demand. For American buyers considering classic ownership, this means the W123 is one of the rare vintage sedans that doesn't demand endless searching or specialist-only shops. It's approachable, durable, and forgiving, making it an ideal entry point into classic ownership without the fear of constant breakdowns. Reflection leads us to legacy. The W123 demonstrated that a car didn't need radical styling or headline-grabbing speed to make history. It proved that careful engineering, respect for safety, and attention to practicality could create a machine that outlived fashion and circumstance. That lesson continues to shape conversations about longevity and value, influencing not only classic enthusiasts, but also those debating what modern cars should aspire to deliver. For US viewers considering what it represents today, think of the W123 as both a piece of rolling history and a reminder that cars can be built to serve generations, not just single owners. Its story isn't nostalgia alone. It's a challenge to manufacturers and drivers alike to recognize the worth of resilience. The Mercedes-Benz W123 doesn't roar into memory with glamour or noise. It endures mile after mile, decade after decade, reminding us that the truest measure of greatness in an automobile is not how fast it passes, but how long it lasts.